In today's video, the new novel by literary superstar Akwaeke Emezi, Little Rot, a classic tale of girl meets printer in the weird Dutch novel Hard Copy. Australia brings back the death penalty with a twist in Georgia Harper's novel What I Would Do to You. A Welsh tearjerker, The Blue Book of Nebo. Elle is the only black person in all of Swift River. Bruce Pascoe discusses Aboriginal agriculture and his life in Black Duck. An offbeat comedy about changing family life and menopause in Sandwich by Catherine Newman. Death in a Slaughter of Cattle and Men. The Daughter of Madurai by Rajasree Variyar. And a novel about sexual assault at the workplace and so much more. Jaded by Ela Lee. Hello and welcome to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. My name is Scott, and if you're new here, this is a channel where I review books, specifically new release novels, literary fiction, and global literature. There is something in today's video for everybody. We've got emotional stuff, lighter stuff, translated stuff, quirky stuff, even some non-fiction, which is really rare for me. And as a really cool weird thing, I have a book from every continent. I've got 10 books. I'm going to start with the worst and I'm going to end with the best. So let's begin. Of Cattle and Men by Ana Paula Maia. Translated from Portuguese or Brazilian by Zoe Perry. This is a novel about the men who work at a slaughter yard when things start to go mysteriously wrong. One of the things I really love about translated fiction is that we often get these books that fall in between the categories of genres that we normally read in the West, and it gives us some really unique and interesting perspectives. But the flip side of that is novels like this one, which fail to be really anything. Maybe this was meant to be a horror novel, but I found it lacking in horror. I also didn't find the plot cohesive. I really didn't know who or what I was supposed to be supporting in this novel. I don't think there's any deep conversation in this. And while the character portraits are definitely the best part of the novel, they're not exactly exceptional. They're a long way from that. The protagonist or villain, I'm really not sure, seems to be some sort of magical animal whisperer who believes in killing animals humanely. And he seems all hell-bent on taking vengeance on anybody who mistreats the animals in any way. And look, I just can't get behind that. Cut with the crap. There is nothing humane about killing a cow so it can be made into a burger. There's something nourishing about it, but it ain't humane. There are definitely more horrible ways of doing it, but there is no humane way. There is no nice, bleeding heart, generous way to kill a creature. And I can totally understand and empathize with the indigenous American things where they pray and they thank the animal for its sacrifice so they can be nourished. I don't care if you eat meat or you don't, but if you are an animal lover, you do not work in a job that kills animals. Unless it's some sort of vet taking it out of their misery thing. No animal lover works at an abattoir. To this extent, the novel also briefly tackles the idea that slaughter yards are evil with a school excursion, leading to people protesting the killing of cows, but being pacified with the simple question, do you eat burgers? I don't think there is anybody out there protesting the killing of animals in a slaughter yard and then going and eating burgers. I don't think there is anybody so stupid as to not put two and two together. And I don't feel like this book is commenting on the separation between food and the source of the food, i.e. beef and cattle. I just think that this is a book that is so ill-considered in so many aspects. This is a real stinker of a novel that just lacks realism, understanding, as well as atmosphere, logic, plot, and themes. My favourite books are when a good literary fiction is also a good commercial fiction with good storytelling. But this is the opposite of that. It fails as a literary fiction, it fails as a commercial fiction, and there is no storytelling. I guess the obvious comparison for this novel is Tender is the Flesh, as they're both South American novels dealing with slaughterhouses. But that is a far more sophisticated novel, and this is trash, and it's bad trash at that too. The Daughter of Mandai. This novel for me really highlights the dangers with reading historical fiction. It is set in both 1992 and 2019 in both India and Australia. This is a novel about the killing of baby girls in poor Indian communities, about the culture of doing that. And it is a really obviously dark and very important issue that could be a really powerful and really moving novel. Unfortunately, it isn't this novel. I'm a little undecided if that is the author's intention, if I am just the wrong reader for this novel, or if it's about execution. But there isn't the deep exploration of the issue or any sort of quality emotional connectivity in this novel. Janai is newly married and she is told she is a burden if she produces daughters. I know that this is a real age-old fallacy the world over, and I know 99% of you know this, but for those of you who are unaware of how genetics worked, it is the sperm that determines sex, not the eggs. And when Janai gives birth to a girl, her mother-in-law and husband put pressure on her to kill it. And look, I'm starting to get a little bit fed up with novels set in India, written by Indian people with an evil mother-in-law. It is so cliche. Just because a woman is a mother-in-law doesn't make her evil. I mean, maybe most of the time. But I do expect character construction in the books I read, not lazy cliches. Show me why she's evil. Show me her motives. Build the character. Don't just have an evil mother-in-law. 27 years later, Nila is keeping a secret from her mother, but doesn't want to tell her as her grandfather is ill. Nila and Janai are going to return to India to visit the grandfather in his last days. And when the two land in India, we see that Nila has this naivety about Indian men that I really struggle to buy. I do believe that naivety exists, but I just don't believe it fit with the rest of Nila's character. She is very smart, she's together, she's street smart. And this is really part of the problem with the novel. Nila has to be naive. There is a scene in India where she is on her own going for a run and Indian men follow her and begin to harass her, and it's a thing that happens. I know Indian men follow Indian women who are alone and harass them. I've read plenty of other novels with it in there. But this is written in such a way that I couldn't help but to say, Nila, you're being bloody stupid. And you know you're being bloody stupid. You know what's about to happen. Haven't you read a single book set in India? Which is, of course, victim blaming and not on. But it is also a response to a truly unbelievable character getting herself in a situation that just doesn't fit with the rest of her. Not listening to warnings, not asking questions. Plot-wise, however, I did actually enjoy this novel. If you're looking for escapist adventure come family saga novel with feminist themes exploring rural Indian life, this is a good book for you. And if you like the sound of the setup of this novel, but just not my review of it, I recommend the following feminist Indian novels: A Burning by Megha Majumdar, Girls Burn Brighter by Shobha Rao, When I Hit You by Meena Kamdasabi, Pyre by Permal Murang, and Gancha Gonsha by Vivek Shangbag. They don't all deal with the specific issues of killing babies, but they all tackle important issues dealing with women in India, and they are all very well written, quality novels. This is a novel I read for my Patreon book club, and I would like to thank my wonderful Patreons for their support and having a conversation about a book that really wasn't that good and making it a joyful reading experience. I'd also like to thank my newest Patreons, Peg, Lettuce, Catherine, Amelia, Julie, Valerie, Karen and Kristen. If you would like to support this channel, please consider signing up too. Even when the novels are disappointing reads like this one, they still raise some wonderful discussions and a wonderful video chat twice every month. Swift River by Essie Chambers. 1987. Swift River, and Diamond is the only black person in the town, including her mother. Her father has left, and we don't know what's happened to him. If he ran out on his family, or if something more sinister happened to him. He was, or is, black. Diamond's mother, white. But Diamond's mother is still somewhat on the outer, having married a black man. Diamond is teased constantly for being fat. She is learning how to drive, and her best friend, who is also sleeping with the driving instructor, is convinced she's seen Diamond's father, so convinces both driving instructor and Diamond to follow another car on a practice drive. Diamond knows it's not her father, but is compelled to follow him, seeing the new family he could have started with a black wife and black children 40 minutes away, and she longs for the normality of that situation, of belonging, of having somebody to tell her what being black actually is. It's been almost 7 years since Diamond's father went missing, and when 7 years tick over, he can be legally declared dead, and this will help Diamond's mother because it will pay out their house. Something that is met with a confused mixture of feelings by Diamond, realizing that her mother owning the house will not have as big an impact on her as she'll soon be old enough to leave and start her own life, but that having her dad legally declared dead might have a bigger impact. One day Diamond receives a letter from Canada, a woman who claims to be her auntie, a long-lost black relative trying to reconnect with her. This is a novel exploring the importance of acceptance, family, identity, and belonging. It is a story about a young black woman, but more than that, it is the story about being somebody who doesn't see themselves represented by the people around them. And you can see how this situation relates to things like black women on the television, or black women being CEOs of companies, or becoming president, although that is looking very possible at the moment. It's a novel that mirrors the underrepresentation of black people in the public eye, and it looks at the impact that that has upon black society. There is also something really nice that happens towards the end. It's a bit of a spoiler, but it really sums up the importance of being intersexual and accepting everybody for who they are. I enjoyed this book. Everything is done to a decent level, but it lacks that bit of special sauce. There is nowhere I can point to in this novel and say, she took a real chance there and it paid off, or even that it failed. And as a result, it isn't the most memorable novel. Good, but it just needed a bit more. What I Would Do to You by Georgia Harper. In the not too distant future, Australia has brought back capital punishment with a twist. The family of the victim carries out the punishment in any way they wish. The rules are they have 24 hours locked in a room with the murderer. They can bring in whatever they want, but when it's over, the murderer must be dead. I'm a bit of an idiot. I read that description and I thought that this novel was going to be a novel about anger, guilt, burden. I thought it was going to be a dark, reflective, emotional novel. And it kind of is, but also it's kind of a thriller. It's a pretty decent thriller, but that's my least favourite genre. And it does enough of the things that I was looking for in a novel to keep me reading. And I really did take something out of this novel, but I can't help but think, oh, I wanted a different book than what I was offered. And geez, if I had have got that book, it would have been fantastic. I wanted internal monologues, people struggling with the reality of killing somebody, even somebody bad. That's a huge moral dilemma. The choice of using a third party as a narrator, even if that third party's role is to provide counsel and reassurance to the potential killer of the murderers, that removes us from those people. It gives us a sort of one step away from their thoughts. I think we can all sort of vaguely empathise with the characters in this, hopefully not from experience, but the emotions, look, they're not subtle. A mother who has had her daughter murdered. There is no doubt who killed her child, but her child has been dead for some time as the legalities of this situation are cleared up. Murder trials simply just don't last a week. And in that time, the mother has had to rebuild her life. She still holds on to the anger, but can she kill somebody with her bare hands? I don't think many people are capable of premeditated murder and torture, which is what this strange law is asking. There is this macabre question that comes out of it. What does it take to kill somebody? Are murderers different to the rest of us? Or are all murderers waiting for the correct circumstances? I kind of wanted a backstory about a soldier who was forced to kill people in the war, or a counterpoint of view to this narrative. I wanted to see different ways people kill people. The backstory we are given is far more relevant to the situation. It is the story of how this girl was killed, the situation around it, and it has its purpose. It shows characters hyperanalyzing their role in the death of their child or their sister. It shows the feeling of guilt we have when somebody we love is lost, and the different actions we could have taken to save them. It is also a story with very little in the way of male characters, but there are 3 male characters: the partner of the killer himself, and the dead girl's older brother. Now, the partner is a bit of a side character. The killer is really a bit of a non-character in this. But the brother has this really interesting journey, trying to find a way to be tough and stereotypically manly without really being that man. It's quite a beautiful depiction of a man who manages to be strong and gentle, reliable, hard-working, supportive, while still having a kind and caring side. It provides an interesting counterpoint to the gendered conversation around being hard. It is a woman in this family who has the task of swinging the axe, so to speak. And just how will this man react when his friends find out that it was not him, but his mum, who had to do the dirty work? Linked in with this story is a natural disaster, and it shows the cheapness of life, or rather the cheapness of life when nature is the one taking life. I'm really confused by this book because there really isn't a lot to it, and it really could have been a top 10 book of the year for me, or even better, but it was still a real pleasure to read. I wanted more. I could see the book that would have been perfect, and this wasn't the book. I wanted more emotions. I wanted less backstory and more plot. I wanted different counterpoints. I wanted it done differently. This was Georgia Harper's first book, so I don't know what she normally writes. I don't know if she's a thriller writer who doesn't ignore the themes in her novels, or if she's a literary fiction writer who is still learning her craft, or if, and I'm sure that this is the most likely, she intends to be somewhere between the two and just needs to figure out her place, her perspective, and her style, and maybe have readers figure out whether she is their author, and have publishers find the correct audience for her slightly better. I can draw comparisons between this and, say, Donna Tartt, sans all the research and teenage angst. So really Donna Tartt without the thing that people hate the most and the thing that people love the most. Black Duck by Bruce Pascoe. Pascoe has caused a stir in Australia when his book Dark Emu was released. He attracted attention from various right-wing dickheads such as Andrew Bolt. Andrew, you've got a face that is all sack and no balls. Pascoe's Aboriginality was challenged in an attempt to present him as a liar and discredit his work on Aboriginal society and finding large structures for catching eels, and challenging the idea that civilization was something white settlers brought to Australia. It was, of course, a racially charged novel, and of course, the attacks on him are racially charged. And incels such as Andrew, my chin is larger than my brain and just as attractive, Bolt, jumped all over him. Dark Emu is a brilliant book because as a white reader, it challenged what I was taught as a young Australian. It pointed out racial biases that I didn't even know I had and allowed me to correct them. Black Duck, in comparison, is just a memoir. We gain a lovely portrait of Pascoe. We learn about his current projects, the breakup of his marriage with his wife Lynn, a woman that he is still friends with and still works with. It is not a revolutionary book. It is not brilliant. It is a meandering memoir that reads more like a chat with an interesting old man who likes footy, cricket, nature, and black Australian history. And if you're interested in Pascoe as a human, it's really worth picking up. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Aboriginal agriculture and farming and the plants they had and so on and so forth, it's quite interesting and worth picking up. But if you don't know who Pascoe is, and if you haven't read Dark Emu and you'd like to learn more about Aboriginal Australia, pick up Dark Emu. There is no comparison between these two books. Hard copy by Fien Veldman, translated from Dutch by Hester Veldman. This is a bizarre novel about a girl, a printer, and the special connection that they have. I can believe that a woman is into electronic goods, but surely being a printer is a big red flag. Surely that's like going on a dating profile and finding somebody holding a fish. Printers are electronic goods with PDA. Our protagonist is a low-paid employee at an office. She starts to feel isolated and develops a connection with the printer she uses. The connection serves as a stand-in for a friendship with an office co-worker, allowing for criticism of the workplace, criticism of work culture and capitalism, a novel where the metaphor that people are often treated like machines under capitalism has bled into the novel. And this is also why our protagonist is unnamed. She is not a person, but a tool, an object. She spends half the novel chasing a package which she will never find, which is a representation of the point of work. The entire novel is a satire of late-stage capitalism, and it's kind of cool and deceptively deep, but at the same time, it's just so stupid. Which is the point, because capitalism is stupid. But I'm kind of in two minds, because I enjoyed the stupidity, but it also kind of cheapened the point, and it kind of cheapened the novel. So I'm not sure if it worked or if it was fun. Once the metaphors are in place, though, Veldman crams in discussions on domestic violence, classism, workplace misogyny, crime, and a raft of other subjects. She is trying to bring them all back to capitalism, and it's a very true argument, an argument that I think that an alarmingly few number of people are aware of. Removing financial stress from families reduces domestic violence. That is a fact. Capitalism is designed to keep the working class poor and funnel money upwards. That too is a fact. Politicians are aware of the role capitalism plays in society. That, 3, is a fact. And Veldman is demonstrating the links of these in her novels. And as I say, it goes back to crime, it goes back to workplaces, misogyny, and it brings it all back to this working capitalism idea that we have. It's just that the message doesn't fit the tone of the novel. And I don't think that's a big criticism, by the way. It's a good but imperfect novel. Frankly, the only thing I'm struggling with in this is why did she pick a printer? The shittest of all the office objects. Laminators, label makers. These are the office electronic machines with good sex appeal. Nobody with any self-respect is falling for a printer. Ugh, printers. The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ros, translated from Welsh by the author. This is a post-apocalyptic novel where the apocalypse isn't really explained. I mean, it kind of is implied that it could be some sort of nuclear thing, but it's not important. Instead, it is first the hopelessness and then the isolation of the situation that this novel is about. And this isolation sort of morphs from post-apocalyptic struggling to stay alive into building a way of life. Relationships change and develop. Roles changed. It's almost a novel where we're watching our characters grieve the human race, grieve the loss of the reader, but they have to carry on, and they have to build a life regardless and reconnect with an older way of doing things, a more sustainable way. And one thing I think is really interesting is that Rowena, mother of our surviving family, finds, pillages or scavenges, whatever you want to call it, a collection of books from a library. And there's quite a bit about the importance of Welsh language in the New World. And I can't help but to think it's a reflection on the new way of life these characters are living, which is basically a very old way, and Welsh represents the old way, but it is not instantly taken up. And it's kind of a very depressing question. We are where we are as a society right now, and even if we have a world-changing event such as a nuclear winter, is Welsh going to survive? What is the point of keeping it? Is it just looking at an old way with fondness? It is almost an attack on Welsh, which invites the reader to defend it, although it clearly isn't an attack on Welsh, because it represents a connection to the land, to the people as well, and it is asking us, now that we're here, can we ever go back? Or will it be in some way different, in some way influenced by where we have been? And that is what this novel is. It is a novel about human connection, but it is also about human capacity and capability and human adaptability. And there are just so many lovely rabbit holes of thought for you to fall down. You know, for a post-apocalyptic dark novel, which is pretty fucking miserable, it's pretty gentle as well. And that is a very fine balance and a very hard thing to pull off. Sandwich by Catherine Newman. Catherine Newman is becoming a safe, quality author in my head. She's funny, although I don't think she's actually writing comedy. She just manages to capture the everyday humour of life by writing good books that occasionally make you laugh. She loves including menopausal women as her protagonists, and it's a point of view we very rarely get in novels. Rocky is swinging between rage and sadness, hating her husband and loving him deeply, hot flushes and cold sweats. And she is going on a family holiday with her recently adult children and her aging parents, all of her important family members. And this novel sways between present days and memories, allowing Newman to demonstrate the forging of bonds that make this family a family, showing us how various relationships evolved. This is a family with a very open, sharing relationship, and at some points it can be a little bit jarringly unrealistic for some reasons. But trust me, I've encountered a few families that are this open and sharing, and yeah, they're weird, but those families exist, and I wouldn't have believed it either if I hadn't met certain people before. And you know who you are if you're watching this right now. Sandwich is a very simple novel about a family on a week-long holiday in the same house that they have visited for decades. It captures a transitory moment in the lives of this three-generational family, where the youngest generation no longer require caring for, but the older generation increasingly do. It is reflective. It is a mostly plotless novel with amazing character construction and great relationship building. I love a book where an author can articulate the flaws in their characters without making them unlikable. I often think that it is the flaws in a well-constructed character that makes them likable. And in this case, we see Rocky throw off her clothes during a hot flash in an attempt to chill down, much to the chagrin of her watching children. And I think it is quirky, playful moments like this that really elevate Charlotte Newman's novels above other feminist reflective authors such as Rachel Cusk, certainly as far as enjoyment of reading is concerned. Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. Akwaeke Emezi writes a book. It is excellent. Exactly nobody is surprised. Little Rot on its surface is a thriller with an excellent plot going to some very dark places. But I don't really care when a thriller goes dark because I don't often find it very realistic. Little Rot is not just believable. It looks at some really horrible, dark, underground things that really happen and go unpunished. Well, sometimes they go unpunished. Other times, people mysteriously hang themselves in their jail cell. This is a novel that is exploring corruption and power and how our drive for success leads our morality to rot. Whatever your thoughts on thrillers, this is certainly not just light entertainment. Kalu has broken up with his long-term girlfriend and agrees to go to one of his friend Ahmed's sex parties. Ahmed's business is sex parties. He is discreet and has attracted a certain clientele. Let's just say Nigeria's Prince Andrew. He's also attracted clients who are not disgusting nonces, and regardless of your opinion on sex parties, don't belong in jail. So Ahmed offers a behind closed door system with passcodes and gives Kalu all the passcodes. However, Kalu doesn't heed the warning. Make sure if you open a door, it's a door you really want to open. And Kalu rushes to the defense of a young woman and punches the wrong man in the face. And hence, Big Daddy, a powerful priest, decides to put a hit out on Kalu for being disrespected. Kalu needs to run. Ahmed needs to smooth things over, which includes convincing Big Daddy not to put a hit out on him as well as Kalu. And Big Daddy is going to do whatever he wants, and there are a whole host of women trying to solve things behind the scene, including a very cool trans woman. Big Daddy has the power that only a metric shit ton of money can buy. And while he can end lives, he also has the power to make them, save them, and change them. So everybody wants something from him. Everybody wants to be in his good graces. This novel is a metaphor for the stratified society in which we live, how real power corrupts, the moral sacrifices that are required to really make it in this world. And it's all wrapped up in an exciting plot. It's dark and it's brilliant. Jaded by Ela Lee. Jade is a successful lawyer. One day after an office party, she wakes up in her house, naked, alone, with no memory of how she got home. 2 used wine glasses out, and a blurred memory. Jade is a young British woman with a Turkish father and a Korean mother. Her parents worked hard so that she can have a future, and she, in return, is a hard worker who has got where she is, not off the back of nepotism, something that is not true of all the people in the law firm she works at. Jade is moving in with her boyfriend, and he just doesn't get it. He thinks he's doing all the right things and being really tolerant and patient and understanding, but he's not. This is a book that is tackling a lot. There is a lot of big issues, but I think the relationship and how to support abuse victims, or rather how not to support abuse victims, is excellently handled. As the novel is written from the point of view of Jade, it must have been very difficult for Ela Lee to write it in a way in which we, the readers, can empathise with Jade's partner. We don't need to think he's in the right, but we do need to understand his actions and his motivations. We do need to know if his poor behaviour is the product of being a selfish douchebag or somebody who just doesn't understand. But it's not just a relationship between a sexual assault survivor and somebody who doesn't understand that. Lee's depiction of a mixed race woman dating a privileged white man brings up themes that are explored in Assembly by Natasha Brown. And Jaded is a book that can handle the comparison to such a wonderfully strong novel as Natasha Brown's Assembly. Lee is looking at both privilege and disadvantage, asking the question, how seriously will Jade's employer take it if she complains? And if she does complain, what will that mean for her career? And you see, before Jade has even made a choice to do anything about the sexual assault, she is battling the societal conditioning she has. How many men get away with sexual assault because women don't think there's a point to reporting it, or that it's just too hard to report it, or it's just too traumatic, or that they don't have enough support to deal with it? Ela Lee is discussing all of this and the price of being a young, attractive, mixed-race woman in a very competitive world. This is such a thought-provoking read. You cannot help but to compare and contrast the mistreatment Jade gets for being poor, mixed-race, a sexual assault victim, or for having career aspirations. You cannot help but to be caught up in this character, in her world, in her life. You really get invested in our protagonist. Even without the big themes and complex discussion, this would be a very addictive novel. It's got the character work and the plot. It has a good but a very dark story. It is emotionally complex, and it forces the reader to be empathetic, and it demonstrates the differences between privileges and disadvantage, between sexism and racism, but it also shows where these things intersect and where they double up. This is the sort of book that you would have expected to see on the Women's Prize long list. It is a typical great Women's Prize novel. And I hate saying that X book was missing from X long list, because there are a lot of good books out there, and the difference between a good and an excellent book is very subjective. But I'm a little disappointed that this didn't make the Women's Prize long list, because it would have generated a lot of wonderful discussion. A truly brilliant book. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye bye.